Hello, everyone. I am here with Frank Lockwood, who will be joining us for the presentation on compression. How are you, Frank?
I'm good.
Uh, Tell us about compression. How do you use compression in your daily events as part of your recording craft?
Well, mostly what I'm after doing primarily classical music, I'm not looking to add much color. A lot of compressors add what they're politely calling saturation effects, but is really distortion and or harmonic distortion. And of course, the onset and attack and release parameters of compressors affect that. So mostly I'm using limiters, but of course, way back in the day when I first started out with recording engineering, I was coming to that as a music performer, as a drummer who came to this through playing sessions in studios and finding that no matter how hard I smacked my kit around in the studio, I'd go into the control room and it would all sound kind of limp and wimpy, uh, largely because you have a volume knob in the control room and you can just turn it down, and this mighty drum set can become this little ticky tacky thing that doesn't sound loud. So that set me on a quest to find the sound of loud.
So
So
did it influence you in terms of time? Did it influence you in terms of attack and release as a drummer? How do the effects of time complement the effects of amplitude?
Well, the attack, of course, if you slow down the attack on a compressor, it allows a certain measure of the onset of the sound to leak through uncompressed before the circuitry jumps on the gain and drags it down. And similarly, if you have a uh, release time that is a significant portion of the duration of the sound, you can sometimes get like like an echo or a second attack. And both of these things, the smack from the slow attack and the sort of bump from the uh, carefully timed release, can give you a real sense of power, which makes the drums sound that much more impressive. But it also can affect the groove. If you're putting a compressor on like a bass guitar or something like that, um, how the release uh, works with the timing of the musician can really zero in on the groove aspect of it. I'm put in mind of a uh, presentation I saw given by Michael Philip Wojwoda a couple of years ago, where he was talking about the album he did for Buffy St. Marie. And he had the tracks for that, and he brought up the drums, and they went boop bap boop bap. And he brought up the bass, and it went dum dum dum. And then he did something, and couldn't really tell what that was, but suddenly everybody's head in the room started bobbing up and down in time to the music. It became that much more infectious. And I'm reasonably convinced that what he was doing was adding on the compression to the rhythm section stems that caused some of these release effects to give very subtle cues as to where all these things were happening in the pocket.
Very cool, very cool.
Yeah, yeah.
In our last minute here, could you tell us about your first experience with compression?
None of us knew what we were doing back in my early days. This would be in the mid 80s in a studio in Calgary. All the people who worked there who were more experienced than I was had come to it from a PA background. So nobody knew anything about this slowing down the attack time thing, and just would tell drummers that they had to play as loud as possible. And this was to essentially limit their dynamic range, so they didn't have to worry too much about the mix. And I never really liked that as a musician. And it took an engineer who came from out of town and spied our two DBX 165A compressors and said, "Oh, well, gee, these are great for drums." And he showed me how to do this trick with the attack control. And suddenly my wimpy drums sounded awfully mighty.
Awfully mighty. That's
Awfully mighty, mighty, mighty.
that's amazing, Frank. Well, Frank, I look forward to hearing your presentation on the 23rd. Thank you for being a part of the Toronto AES. We really appreciate you as a part of our community, and we look forward to seeing you at the event.
Well, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to it myself.
Take care.
Right.